You're going to start sharing the slides, Elizabeth?
Sure, no worries.
Okay. So my name's Keith Black. I'm the Coordinator of Strategic and Community Planning at Baw Baw Shire Council, and I'm joined tonight by Elizabeth Williams, Team Leader of Social and Community Planning, Tabitha Duffus, Community Policy Officer, and Leonie Phillips, Community Development Officer. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I also pay my respects to any First Nations people who may be here with us tonight. Our team extended an invitation to all recipients of a community development grant to connect with Council via this information session. We will share some information to support the delivery of your projects following what has been a very difficult year. We acknowledge also that these circumstances may impact your projects in many different ways, but be assured that beyond tonight, we are available to discuss these impacts and how they are being experienced by your projects. Welcome and thank you for connecting with us to provide an overview of the requirements of your grants, and congratulations on the effort that you've made to receive a grant and the work that you do to support the needs and activities of your organisation and participate in the community. So I'll be the presenter tonight. Elizabeth will be the Zoom host and tech, and Tabitha will be looking after the chat. I think Elizabeth just mentioned that a minute ago, and will be the question and answer facilitator, and Leonie will also be there in the background.
Keith, I'm sorry, I've just seemed to have an issue. I'll just pause for a minute and sort that out. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. I think we're back in business. Are we good? All right. Thank you. Apologies.
So tonight we'll cover off some information related to the accepting a grant, managing your project for a smooth acquittal process, and address your general questions. We expect to conclude our presentation by 8 p.m. If you have to leave early, it's a matter of simply ending your call to this session. You just leave the meeting. Before we get started, we want to go over some housekeeping. Oh, we've already done that, that Elizabeth has just taken us through. So yeah, hopefully it's a fairly comfortable and easygoing session as well. So there'll be a couple of points where we'll have Q&A throughout the presentation. And so it's probably requested that you hold your questions until that time. So general questions are important to us to understand the challenges you have identified in your project and your understanding of the content we have provided. During the session, we encourage you to use the chat function to ask general questions. If your questions are specific to your project, I encourage you to contact the team during office hours via email or phone. Having said that, if you've got questions tonight and you think of them as we're going along and they're specific to your project, I suggest that you can just send us an email here and now, as opposed to asking those project-specific questions through this forum. Tabitha will be across the questions in the chat pane and we'll respond to those during the session. So part one, roles and systems. So Council's role in your project. It'll include the administration of funding agreements and supporting the delivery of your projects. If your project encounters an issue or a challenge, we encourage you to contact us and to be sure that the issue isn't going to create other problems later in the project. Projects often have different levels of engagement and support across 3 different funding programs. Support is provided individually and as necessary as requested. The role of the recipient is more broad. There are many roles that you will undertake and complete to deliver your project. We recognise that you will do many project management tasks such as purchasing, managing logistics, managing timelines, coordinating contractors and suppliers, communicating with council, communicating with your committee, and project reporting, to name a few. Those roles that we wanted to point out include how important it is to understand and comply with the funding agreement. This outlines conditions under which the grant was provided and often can be referred to when you have questions or concerns. However, we encourage you to become familiar and reach out to our team as questions or issues arise. Reporting is also a very critical activity. Following your acceptance of the funds disbursement process, a project acquittal within 90 to 30 days of completion is the next reporting activity. Record keeping. So paid tax invoices for purchases made is essential, as will be permits or certificates your project has required were obtained. So Smarty Grants continues to be used at Baw Baw Shire for the management of your grant, and your role will require you use Smarty Grants. You will need to access your Smarty Grants account, if not already, to accept or decline your grant, as well as submit a project acquittal report. And if you have any necessary changes, submit a project variation request to Council. Council is very aware that the extended timeline between submission and notification of outcome may present some challenges, and we encourage you to get in touch and complete a project variation request. That is, if you can advance your project and must do it with some modifications. This may include changes to the quantity of items you will purchase, the scale of project you will deliver, or keeping in mind the project.
Keith, we seem to be
Have
having
you
just a
moved?
little bit of audio trouble. Could
Yeah.
we just go back just a little step to, I think we were talking about variation requests. If we could pick up from there, please.
So I'll just read that. So council is very aware that the extended timeline between submission and notification of outcome for this round may present some challenges, and we encourage you to get in touch and complete a project variation request. That is, if you can advance your project and must do it with some modifications. This may include changes to the quantity of items you will purchase, the scale of project you will deliver, or keeping in mind the project timelines, any extension to the timeline you require. Are you still hearing me okay,
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. Thank you, Keith.
Are you going to move to the next
Oh, I
slide?
beg your pardon. Sorry. I haven't got quite the whole story on my screen at the moment. Thank
That's
you.
Okay. It is good practice for your committee to manage the access to its Smarty Grants account. Knowing who has access to your grants information and knowing that you can support who can support your grants officers when things change is part of managing the risks of your project delivery. Council assumes that the people accessing your Smarty Grants account are authorised to do so, and that they may act on behalf of the applicant. This becomes more important when we release and receive the funding agreement and associated documents via Smarty Grants. Council accepts electronic signatures, and whoever is accessing your Smarty Grants account should have the support of your committee to complete the forms. Council chooses to use Smarty Grants to help us meet our responsibilities when we administer public funds. It's very important that council officers do not interfere with the applicant's responsibilities. For this reason, Smarty Grants separates your information from what council officers can see. Your information remains yours until you have submitted it. Your One Smarty Grants login can be used over and over again for any Baw Baw Shire grant offered via this system. Try and avoid creating new accounts when a new funding round is offered. Please note, council officers cannot help with forgotten passwords. You'll need to use the recovery function on the login screen via Smarty Grants. We strongly encourage an organisational login. It becomes part of your administration assets and lets you control your information. Look back on your grants history, so previous applications or reports you may have submitted, and receive grants advice from council in a predictable way. It protects your grants information and lets you continue your grants administration when your volunteer change roles. An organisational login can be accessed wherever there is internet. This flexibility lets your grants officer log in at home, at your facility, or even at a cafe. A good tip is to update your Smarty Grants password, when you have a change of personnel. So we'll stop now for any questions. I'm not sure if any questions have been submitted through the chat at all, Tabitha, or if anyone else has any questions I'd like to ask.
I think we might just touch on Rosemary and Margaret were keen to receive the PowerPoint presentation, and I'm sure we can distribute that. That was the only one that's come through for the moment.
Excellent.
Okay, so we'll move on then if no one else has any questions.
Yeah, I think you can, Keith. Thanks.
Keith, I'm not sure if others are experiencing your audio, but it's sounding a little odd to me. It might just, could you start again from the beginning of that slide, please? I seem to be experiencing. That's okay.
I just lost you. I'm back again. So
okay, excellent, great, thanks, Keith.
I'll just stop incoming video if I can.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure we got any of that slides content, Keith. So feel free to start from the top.
Yeah. So the funding agreement that is made between your organisation and council to deliver your project. If not already, the funding agreement is viewed on Smarty Grants and accepted via the funds disbursement form. Council accepts electronic signatures and assumes that people using your Smarty Grants account are acting for the applicant and are authorised to complete the forms. To receive your grant, you will need to accept the funding agreement and provide council with a tax invoice. The tax invoice will only be paid when all documentation required for your grant is received. This includes public liability insurance, supplier information, if required. We ask that this process is satisfactorily completed by the 26th of March. It is written into your funding agreement and funds will not be released to you if this process is incomplete. Can you hear me? You're hearing me again okay, Elizabeth?
Yeah, all good. Great work. Thank you.
A project acquittal report is information to be presented to council on your project, documenting that you delivered your project as expected. The timelines each category is working to is described here on this slide, with reports due 1 month prior to the project end date. Council will review your project acquittal report and provide written advice to say that your project is complete, or if there is anything outstanding. If there is an outstanding element, your project is not complete until this has been resolved to council's satisfaction. Project management. Paid tax invoices or receipts made out to the application organisation are the only acceptable form of evidence for a community development grant. These documents should name the organisation that is delivering the project, not an individual. Importantly, you as the organisation delivering the project are accountable for how the grant money was spent. It is your responsibility to demonstrate the costs of the project through the submission of paid tax invoices, with a zero balance, that are also made out to your organisation. Your project acquittal report must also provide council with any certificates or permits your project has obtained, planning or building permits or certificates such as electrical safety. Photographic evidence is strongly encouraged. Please be sure to have permission to take and share photos with council or whoever else. project variation request. If your project has changed in any way since the time you applied for the funding and now at commencement, you need to propose this change via a project variation request. We expect that this might be the situation for many applicants and for many applications, and I think that's because of the interruptions in timelines that we had last calendar year. A project variation request outlines the changes to your project and describes to council why they are necessary. A change to a project is not authorised by council until a written response is made by council. At the time of submitting this request, we advise that it is safe and practical to do so, that the project activities are suspended. The reason for this is that council will make a decision on whether or not it will support your request. If you've continued to spend project funding but are not supported to vary the project, you will need to meet those costs. Council will only meet the costs of project that it has approved. Future funding rounds. The Community Development Grants Program, as an item of eligibility, does not assess applications from organisations with an outstanding project acquittal report or outstanding debt to council. What this means is that to have an application considered in the next round of the program, you will need to submit your project acquittal report by the 24th of April to receive council's written advice of your project completion before the close of the new round. This item will impact those projects that need a longer time to be delivered and where you were planning to make an application to the 21-22 program. The 2021-22 program will open on the 13th of April. The close dates are shown there. So we have another pause here for questions, and I believe I saw a question pop up through the chat.
There is. So Margaret's asked a detailed question about, she understands that there was a mention of a potential review of items purchased as council was aware of the delay to include pricing when approved. As generally pricing has increased as in normal CPI, but also indirectly increased costs due to COVID complications possibly by the various businesses. Compliances by the various businesses providing works, particularly in the minor capital. Was this aspect looked at as only 180K of the 210K of the grant allocation was made? Was this considered by council? Did you want to take that one, Elizabeth, for the moment, or do you?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to respond. It's a terrific question. The report that was presented to council, officers are obliged to present the administrative process as we processed it. The delays council experienced were officers weren't asked to factor that in or make adjustment to applications given the timeframe. We'd be making assumptions about what costs might have been incurred or changed. So that work wasn't requested and it wasn't undertaken. So you're correct in noticing that there was an allocation or an available fund, an available budget of $210,000. Council's allocation is 182, and that was council supporting applications that had met the eligibility and had demonstrated sufficient merit to receive funding. So while the budget is available, it doesn't mean that council shares that. Our responsibility as officers of council is to administer those public funds and to be able to track those records for future scrutiny. So if there's a variation required, then please speak to us. If it is circumstances where the costs have changed in a way that prevents you from delivering the project the way you'd had applied for it, an option that you have is to not accept the offer of funding, defer the project and seek those funds in the next round. it's obvious that that then means a further delay for the project to commence or be delivered, but that is your option. The offer from council is purely an offer. Whether you accept the offer is up to applicants. The circumstances of last year and the delay in council being able to make that decision has impacted in ways that we couldn't always forecast, and we're sorry about that. You know, it's also makes administering the grants and the program a harder job as well. So it's not a position we chose to be in, and we're here to work with you to get the best outcome we can with the situation we're in. I hope, I'm not sure whose question it was. I'm happy to expand on that or clarify anything that maybe didn't hit the mark on the response.
I think Margaret's tried to just expand on the question and looking to confirm that a variation on costings is okay.
I understand.
But we perhaps can address that directly tomorrow.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's all we've got. Again, there's repeated interest in having the slides made available, and we can do that.
We also try to have a copy of this presentation online at some point as well, Elizabeth. Is that the intention?
It is my intention, so that is there to refer back to. That was the I'm not quite sure how to get from a Zoom recording to a file that can then be published, but I'm sure our comms team will help us sort that one out. So we'll let you know once that's been shared. We'll certainly let you know. There may be others that want to have a look at over this content.
Probably also just like to note that part of the delays, obviously the delays last year were affected by the issues surrounding COVID, but also last year that we had the elections, the council elections, which also delayed our administration and of this round of funding as well. So it was a bit of a perfect storm, and we're caught up in the middle of it. And unfortunately, this round's been significantly delayed.
I have to be honest, I was expecting many more questions, but I'm happy to share the slide and continue if people are happy to do that. Okay, so I'm just getting an update on a different system. All right, so I'll pop back to the PowerPoint if I can remember how to do that. Okay, I think we're in the right spot. Oh, now is it gonna, there we go. Thanks, Keith.
So I guess the next slide just details the grants reception that we're looking to hold in March. So Tuesday, the 23rd of March, 6 p.m. for a 6:30 start. It's the West Gippsland Arts Centre in the Fountain Room. COVID safe practices are in place at this event and they're planned based on today's requirements. So RSVP is essential, and should the situation change, it would be managed by council and the venue. And that we would let you know in advance via email, if anything. Obviously, it's a sort of a fast-changing environment that we're living in with regards to COVID. So things are changing fairly rapidly, but we will let you know ahead of time, and we're planning based on today's COVID requirements. But we strongly encourage everyone to get along to that. I think everyone's fairly excited about it. I know the team is, and the council group themselves, so the actual council laws are excited, and I think a few of them will be heading along as well. So yeah, it's one of the good news stories for council. It's been a fairly tough 12 months and been a bit of a delay to this project. So yeah, we're all looking forward to reception next month. So this is, I guess, the final slide, just with the team's details, with the phone number and the email address. we strongly encourage you to have constant communication with council officers during the process, and it probably ensures the most efficient, I guess, project delivery and I guess receipt of the funding. So yeah, so whenever you have any issues or any questions regarding any of your projects or the grants in general, strongly encourage you to make contact with council officers. And I think that's the end of our slide package. So thank you for all coming along. Again, we're running well ahead of schedule, so I'll probably open it back up for some questions. Yeah, which is we're probably expecting a lot of questions. But again, like if you have specific questions to your projects, strongly encourage you to make contact with council officers as per the last slide. But yeah, if you have any more questions now of a general nature, yeah, we'll stay around to answer those as best we can.
There's just one more question, Keith, with regards to the grants being awarded exclusive of GST. So that's from Andre. We might touch base as well with you tomorrow specifically.
If there's no further questions, oh, Rod.
Yeah, can I just ask, so once the required funding agreement, the public liability certificate of currency is provided and the tax invoice, what do you anticipate the turnaround for organisations to receive their funds?
I haven't actually fact-checked that, Rod, but as a government organisation, there's always that disclaimer of up to 30 days when we are making payment. It's typically not as long as that, but I believe that is the outside term of payment. Yep, I'm just getting confirmation of that from a team member. Thank you. It is typically less than that, but it may be up to 30 days. Any other questions?
I think another person's just asked about the GST, noting it's a general question.
Just haven't got eyes on that question. Let me.
So I just want to confirm that the grant amount award is exclusive of GST.
You've caught me at the end of the day, and I'd rather can check that and make sure I'm saying the right thing before I answer that. I just would hate to give you the wrong information in this forum. So if you wouldn't mind letting me take that on notice and confirming the detail of that. I'll have to just getting that muddled with some other information. So let me take that on notice. Thank you. Excellent. Oh, certainly, absolutely. Sorry, and just reading in the text message, the question is, will that answer come back to everybody in the meeting? Absolutely, yes. That's not a secret. We'll make sure that we share that equally with you all here. Just in case there's any other questions that are just coming, I'd like to say congratulations to you all and thank you for the patience that you've shown. It's certainly not been an easy year in so many ways, and waiting for council's decision on this piece of work took some patience. We acknowledge that and we thank you for your patience. We really are happy to be at this milestone and working with you to find the way forward to deliver your projects and support that delivery. So do call us. We really do want to help and understand if there's variations needed or requested. It helps us immensely to know that early, and it will help with the process at the end when it comes to acquittal, if we're on the same page as to what you're acquitting. That's absolutely makes your life easier and ours. So we're here. We really are available to answer your questions and respond to you quickly. Well, if there are no questions left for tonight's forum, all that remains is to say we look forward to seeing you in March at the Arts Centre. I believe there'll be some wonderful food and nibbles on hand, so don't eat your tea before you come. You know, just it's a highlight of our year, so we'll look forward to seeing you there, and between now and then we'll help get these funds dispersed and to you, and we'll all be able to let our hair down a little bit in March. Nothing further from me, Keith, if you'd like to close off the presentation, and I don't know that there's anything else from my team. Thanks, Tabitha, for the update via a Skype message.
Yeah, just once again, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming along tonight. And again, just to encourage you to make contact with council officers if you have any further questions following tonight, whether they be general or specific to your project. But yeah, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll end the recording now. Enjoy your evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.